Welcome back. I hope you guys all had a nice weekend. Let me get my pens out here. I wasn't really prepared. So on Friday we talked about the Pythagorean Theorem. So we did some experiments with squares and things for me to try and show you what the Pythagorean Theorem is really meaning. So your warm-up is just tell me what's the longest side of a triangle. Okay, you guys might have talked about this, you might have not. If you haven't talked about it or you don't know, what I'm going to talk to you about now will help. Okay, so right here I have a right triangle. Okay, it has a 90-degree angle. Okay, it has two sides, which we typically call legs. Okay, so these are legs of a triangle. Okay, and then the third side, which is across from the 90-degree angle, you can see that it doesn't touch the 90-degree angle, it's actually across from it, is what's called the hypotenuse. Okay, hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is always the longest side. Okay, so hypotenuse is the longest side. These legs, I don't really care which one's longer, which one's shorter. I just need to know that the sides of the triangle that are touching the 90-degree angle are the legs. The side across from the 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse. Okay? So, again, I wrote a note here. The hypotenuse is always the longest side and is across from the 90-degree angle. Now, the Pythagorean Theorem, okay? Now, I'm going to call this leg A and this leg B. It doesn't matter which one is called A and which one's called B. You can flip them around. The important part is that C is the hypotenuse, okay? And so C is the one, I don't know if you guys can see this in the video. There is a 90-degree angle symbol there. It is across from the 90-degree angle. So this is the hypotenuse. So the formula is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I don't know if you guys can see that as so well. So you're taking one of the legs and squaring them, plus the other leg that's squared equals the hypotenuse squared, okay? So today's lesson, what we're going to do is I'll give you 2 out of the 3 sides of the triangle, and you have to find the third side, okay? So you're definitely going to want a calculator of some sort. Let me get mine out. Okay, so we can use that. All right, so, and again, I made this note that I just spoke to you. A and B are always the legs of the triangle. It doesn't matter which leg you choose for which letter. So A and B, I could call this one B and this one A, and I'd still get the same answer. The only thing that matters is this angle, or this side, I'm sorry, is always C. Okay? All right, so what they're doing here is they're just going to give us the letters. They're not going to put it on a triangle or anything. They're just going to give it to us. So again, I remember that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Okay. Now A is 10, so I'm going to plug this in. So I have 10 squared plus B is 7.5 squared equals C squared. Okay. So I'm literally going to type this in here. So I know that 10 squared, I know that one off the top of my head. 10 squared is 100, right? Plus 7.5 squared. Oops, sorry, my calculator already had some stuff on it. 56.25. So 100 plus 56.25 equals C squared. So when I do 100 plus 56.25, I'm going to get 156.25 equals C squared. Now, I want to actually know what C squared is by itself, or C by itself, okay? So how do I get rid of a square and get it to the other side? I have to square root. So a square root and the square will cancel each other out. So I'm just left with C here. And I'm just going to type this in the calculator because obviously it's not a perfect square because it's got a decimal in it. Okay. And I get 12.5. So the hypotenuse, or the longest side of this triangle, oops, sorry guys, is 12.5. Okay, and I didn't give you units, so it's just 12.5 units. Okay, so all I did was I took my formula, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. This might be something you want to write down on a note card right now, so that way you have it ready for the test. I plugged in A and B and sat here and solved for C. Okay, so it's a couple step problem, so you should actually plug it in, show me the work, then add it, then take the square root, because if you try and do too many steps at once, you're going to forget what you're doing. Okay, all right, now this time I'm actually going to give you the triangle. Okay, so you're going to have to identify what is A, what is B, and what is C. Okay, so I'm trying to find this guy here, and they didn't draw a symbol, but this is the 90-degree angle here. Okay, so again, this is a leg because it's touching the 90-degree angle, so I'll call it A. I could have called it B, it doesn't really matter. Again, this is another leg because it's touching the 90-degree angle, so I'm going to call this one B. And this one is across from it, so this is the side C. So I need to find out what C is going to be. Now I could call it C or X, it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to write the formula again. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And I'm going to plug in what I know. So A is 9 and B is 12. So I get 9 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared, because I don't know what C is, or X. You can call it X if you want, because that's what they give us. Doesn't really matter. Okay, now I know that 9 is 81. 9 squared, I'm sorry. Plus 12 squared is 144 equals C squared. Again, if you didn't know those off the top of your head, please plug them in a calculator, okay? And I'm going to do 81 plus 144, so 225. So when I add those two together, I get 225 equals C squared. Okay. Now again, to get rid of a square, I want to get C by itself. So to get rid of a square, I square root. Okay. And I'll type that in the calculator. Now, if you know that one off the top of your head, golden. But the square root of 225 is 15. So that means C, because this cancels, equals 15 feet. Okay. So a 9, 12, 15 triangle is what's called a Pythagorean triple. You're not going to have to know that, but they're whole numbers that nicely give you a right triangle. Okay. Pause if you need to catch up on that one. I'll move it over here so you can pause right there. Okay. And we have another triangle. Again, this one's a little different because we're solving for a different side length. Again, I'll just call this one A and this one B, because again, I didn't label it here, but this is a 90-degree angle. It doesn't matter. Again, I could call this one B and this one A. I'll still get the same answer. And 5 feet is C, because it's the hypotenuse, it's the longest side, it's across from the 90-degree angle. So again, I have my formula, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now I'm going to have to do things a little different this time, because I'm solving for a leg of the triangle. So A is A, or you could call it X, it doesn't really matter. Okay, B is 4, and C is 5, okay? So I have to do things a little different. So A squared is just going to stay A squared. 4 squared is 16. 5 squared is 25. Again, you should show all these steps, okay? So you're not confusing yourself on what's happening. Now I need to get this by itself so I can square root both sides, okay? I don't want to square root now because that would throw me all off. So I need to subtract 16 from both sides. Draw your dotted line if you need to. So I get A squared equals 25 minus 16 is 9. Okay. Now I have A squared by itself. So how do I get rid of a square? I have to square a root. Okay. So I get A equals the square root of 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. Again, if you needed a calculator for that, that's okay. So X is 3 feet. I should always put a label there. Okay. Or the other, you can call it A or X. I don't really care what variable you use as long as you remember which variable you're solving for. Okay. So this one's slightly different when you're solving for a leg versus when you're solving for the hypotenuse, like we did in this first example on this page. Okay. All right. Now we're going to get a little more complicated, but it shouldn't be too bad. Okay. All right. So I have this triangle, and again, I didn't give you a 90-degree angle because I had to draw these on the Google notes. So I have this big right triangle here, right? And I need to find out what X is. So I know that the side touching this is A, okay? And this is B. Well, this whole thing is C, okay? Not just the X and not just the 13.5. So I have to do things differently than what I've been doing, okay? So this is a little more complicated, but I know you guys can do it. So again, I'm still using the same formula. I'll write it down here so you guys can see everything. Let me cover this up so as not to confuse you. So we have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So the A and B are easy, right? A is 18 squared plus B, which is 35 squared, equals now C squared. How can I find the length of C? I have to add those two together. So I'm actually going to put that in parentheses. 13.5 plus X. And I have to square that whole term. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys can't see. So I literally just wrote parentheses 13.5 plus X because that's the length of this whole side, right? I have to add these two together. and I'm squaring that. So I need this in parentheses because there's more than one piece, okay? And then I'm going to do my math here. 18 squared is 324 plus, what is it, 35 squared? So we're getting some big numbers here. 1225 equals, now I can't square any of this, okay? I just literally have to write it like that. Okay. And then I'm going to do 324 plus 1225. I get 1549 equals 13.5 plus x squared. Now how do I get rid of a square? Do you guys remember? I have to square root, okay? So again, this is a lot of steps, so please, please, please write each step down. I'm going to square root both sides, okay? So again, I don't know that one off the top of my head. I have to square root 1549. And it comes out to this icky number, but we're going to write it down anyway. So 39.36. Round it to 2 decimal places, okay? And so the square and the square root cancel, so I'm left with 13.5 plus x on this side. Sorry, you guys couldn't see that. Okay. Now I need to get x by itself, so I got to do one more step here. I'm going to subtract 13.5. Okay. And I'm just going to do that in my calculator, just so that way I don't mess anything up here. Okay, so I get 25.86 equals x. Okay. Which is what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to find x. So again, multi-step problem here. I knew my legs, so I got that pretty easy, okay? But my hypotenuse was 2 pieces, 13.5 plus x. And I had to square that and put that in parentheses, okay? Once I got this all done here, I was able to take the square root of both sides. Then I had to subtract the 13.5 over in order to get x by itself. Again, multi-step problem. Please, please, please show your work, okay? All right, I have another one like that. Okay. Okay, so this one, very similar. Oh, I literally wrote the same thing. Okay, we're going to skip this one because I didn't change the numbers. Okay, so you guys can just use this example. I think there's 2 in the homework like this today, so just refer back to this example. Okay? All right. And your exit slip, I drew your beautiful picture. I want you to solve for x. So we have 5 feet here. I don't know if you guys can see that. 5 feet, 13 feet is the hypotenuse. This is my right angle, and this is x feet. Okay? I'll draw the triangle over top of this. I'll help you be able to see it on the video. Okay, so do that exit slip, please, and turn it in when you are done. If you need help with these questions, I'll be happy to help you, okay? Again, my biggest tip for you in this section is write it down. Do each step. Don't skip anything, okay? All right, have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.